I've enjoyed a lot of dystopian dark fantasy manga over the years, but one that slipped under my radar until recently is Aftergod by Sumi Eno. It's unfortunately hardly talked about or recognised in the West, which is odd given its tone and identity is a mix of many other popular series, most notably Chainsaw Man, Tokyo Ghoul, Hell's Paradise, or The Summer Hikaru Died. Of course, it has its own charm and identity, but I'm surprised it hasn't connected more with fans of the genre. It ticks all the boxes to qualify as a popular and well-loved shonen series, and has beautiful artwork to match. Also, the comedy is genuinely solid, if not a mood whiplash that you have to get used to, though it's not too different to Chainsaw Man, of which the mangaka is a massive fan of. So, hoping to spread awareness of the manga, let me do my best to sell the story to you. Aftergod starts with a premise of materialising unkillable gods. They're beings of great immensity first detected in Okhotsk, inhabiting the earth for 10 years, or so that's the story. Authorities evacuated the areas these beings occupy, designating them danger zones due to the risk of harm or death to anyone crossing their borders. They desecrate the earth, make it their own, and claim possession. Only those with hazmat suits can enter, or those with a blessing from the gods. Which is one of the unfortunate turn of events. The high risk of fatality warns people away from danger zones. However, some people celebrate these deaths, misrepresenting their severity and portraying them as desirable, because a god-ordained death is considered peaceful. Therefore, the gods are admired, idolised even, by those of faith, or sought by suicidal individuals. It's for this reason many refer to the gods as idolatry prohibited organisms, or IPU for short. This leads to our main character's search for truth and a boiling fervent revenge path. Waka Kamikura is an 18-year-old girl whose best friend, Shion Kirinoma, voluntarily visited a god and was killed, of which society deems a suicide. The manga tells a story of grief and frustration. Waka appears dead set on exacting revenge on the gods for taking away someone so dear, but also comes to grips with her best friend willingly visiting a god, without coming to her for consolation first. Because gods are idolised, they don't venture outside of the danger zones they create, so any human who visits them is a victim of persuasion. The catch to all of this, in typical shonen form, is that Waka herself possesses the powers of the gods, or somewhat. Unbeknownst to herself, during middle school, she received the eyes of a god, their name being Alula. She continues life relatively normal, or as normal as can be in the circumstances, but occasionally Alula possesses Waka's body, something Tokunaga, our second protagonist, witnesses firsthand. Alula transforms Waka into something far more fearsome and deadly, a god subspecies that possesses powers of the gods, which, of course, becomes a valuable asset to the Institute, a research facility dedicated to studying and combating the gods, where Tokunaga works as a veterinarian. Their primary goal is eliminating the gods, and given Waka's personal experience and vendetta against them, will work alongside them and be studied herself. The familiarity of Waka's premise explains my comparison to Chainsaw Man or Fall Night, but it's not a carbon copy. One reason I like this series so much is because of Waka's determination. She's very different from Denji or Toshiro. Shion's death lingers across the narrative, haunting Waka in the wake of mourning. And there's nothing more chef's kiss than a dead character haunting the narrative, who so heavily affects the main character's decisions and committed motivation, even more so between girls in a shonen series. What's interesting about Waka's scenario is that she never remembers her actions during Alula's possession. She doesn't recall what she's done, or if Alula has impersonated as her to someone she loves. In fact, there's nothing to show anything's wrong with Waka, besides the eyes she hides behind sunglasses to avoid hypnotising others, and the sudden mood change, until she's possessed and turns red, which is a bit of a giveaway. It does, however, make her the perfect candidate to study, but at the cost of a teenage girl mixing the balance of protagonist to antagonist in the blink of an eye. There's an uncertainty about her actions, but this scenario is something that she can use to her advantage. Ironically, Alula is also her salvation. Through Alula, Waka gains immense power and new skills. Though Waka could have gained new skills without having to be possessed by an evil god, If she learnt from classes on Skillshare, today's sponsor. If you're eager to improve on or learn new skills you've been putting off, Skillshare can help you with that through thousands of classes and tutorials that'll guide you with easy steps. Trying to learn new skills can be overwhelming. It's tough to find the time to sift through the internet for clear, easy to follow tutorials. But with Skillshare, there's a wealth of classes to choose from. I'm pretty advanced with After Effects, but my Premiere Pro skills were lacking. So I picked up a class by Geordie called Learn Video Editing with Adobe Premiere Pro for Beginners, and have slowly been gaining confidence in a program I knew very little about. They even include timestamps to show you how long each part of the class takes, which help me take breaks and get back to the video in my own time without feeling pressured. Skillshare also organises classes into learning paths, which groups all relevant classes together, making it easy to navigate based on your skill level, whether you're just starting out or you're already experienced. Skillshare is a fantastic online community offering inspiration and opportunities to learn or develop new skills from industry experts. Whether you're interested in illustrating, painting, or video editing like me, there's a class for nearly everything. If you're interested in trying Skillshare for yourself, the first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. That's an entire month to explore a new skill at no cost. A big thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. As I mentioned earlier, the gods have the power to hypnotise people upon eye contact. Their breath turns human bodies into water, and they desecrate giant spaces of land, among other things. It's for this reason there are many in the world who question their roles and existence. Are they truly gods? Is a being that causes nothing but destruction and misery something to be cherished? It causes an uproar of political conflict, hence the gods also being referred to as Aipus, as many believe them to be anything but a deity. Despite the atrocities I listed, the gods' true power is their reach, to influence millions of people, gain their trust, their loyalty, by merely existing. It's humans who make the gods more desirable, deem them the perfect out for humans to have, especially to those vulnerable or living miserable lives. People describe the gods as beautiful, claiming those who survive encounters with them are happier, and portray them as saviours for everyone. It's genuinely sad. People struggling with drug or alcohol abuse, a financial crisis, or people with mental health issues believe that being killed by a god is a better option than living, purely because of the stories humans have spread about them. The gods themselves didn't even have to do anything for this to happen, which makes them even more dangerous. As of this, suicide is a topic brought up many times in Aftergod. Wakka's best friend suffered abuse from her family that drove her to suicide, and a few other things, but that's spoiler territory. Humans' fabricated idea of the gods pushed people like Shion to this decision, but what I appreciate is Tokunaga being forthright in reasoning Shion's actions not strictly resulting from the gods. They're not the issue at hand. She would have committed suicide whether or not the gods were there. The actual issue was that Shion felt that there was no other option, nor any help at hand. Humans spread a miracle story about the gods, which made death seem easier to Shion, and that is what forces Wakka's hatred of them to burn hotter. The gods views humans as inferior, like mindless bugs who can be readily squashed by a boot, and yet they find entertainment in our suffering. Bored in their own divine realms, they seek chaos and misery towards humans for their own sources of entertainment. The gods' sense of arrogance leaks in droves when they only help because of boredom and not an actual want to help. But the gods themselves are such interesting characters that Sumi Eno does a brilliant job of exploring. Annoyingly, I can't show the dynamics between the gods, as that's a massive spoiler, but trust me when I say their unique characteristics shine when they fight and talk with each other. Even more so when they interact with our main cast, because whilst all their motives differ, they all share an incoherence to human behaviour. They fail in understanding why humans feel certain emotions, or don't recognise how morality can shift people's behaviours and actions. For instance, one god shows incomprehension towards death. Alula believes Wakka having concerns other than revenge for Shion means there's something wrong with her brain. The gods know nothing of humanity, of what it means to be human, which is funny because many gods in the series like being in human form. grow attachments to humans that challenge their own principles. And this is why the gods don't leave the forbidden zones they create. It's not because they grow weaker with regular air, but their contact with humans poisons their mentality. Ironically enough, the gods grow more human the longer they interact with them. And that's why many relationships in the series are multifaceted. Shion haunts the narrative, and despite the importance of the gods, the focus constantly returns to the connection of women. Alula clings to Waka because of her love for Shion, a love she knows can be easily manipulated, and I appreciate Sumi Eno for writing them like this. They could have easily made Waka a guy and feel even more familiar to stories we've already experienced. But I think I'd have found that boring. Waka and Shion's relationship as girls is far more interesting and layered, especially given their bond gave Shion memories of happiness in a family life that lacked such. Every decision Waka makes, the intricacies of her revenge path and grieving, all revolve around the girl she loves. And before people complain I had Yuri glasses on, which I always do anyway, a chapter of them together is called First Love, and the mangaka writes BL manga too. Pretty good manga as well, I might add. So it doesn't feel like a stretch in reading Waka's love for Shion being more than friendship. Though I'm not devaluing friendship and its importance, of course, just my interpretation. Which also leads to the other main relationship in the series, which reminds me of Aki Angel, if only a tiny bit, because of gay suffering. But the delicious, angsty kind? There's a clear sense of familiarity and kinship between Tokinaga and Obikawa. To the point, Tokinaga shares personal information about himself that he wouldn't to anyone else, not even our main character. I can't, unfortunately, delve too much into their dynamic just because it's spoilers galore, but I'll just say there's a lot of hidden depths within the relationship, making it one of the most intriguing of the series, and one I can definitely see a lot of fans really enjoying. And the last dynamic I love is the partnership between Waka and Tokinaga. Often in such stories where institutions bring in characters as research or weapons, the tutors mistreat them or push them far more than they should. This is definitely not the case with Waka and Tokinaga. They remind me of Power and Denju's relationship to Aki, though I'd say Tokinaga puts his foot down for Waka even more. Despite her being 18 and therefore at an age where people could argue she's no longer a kid when putting her in deadly scenarios, Tokinaga argues this. He recognises her as a kid still and doesn't wish to see the system take advantage of that, especially given she's emotionally vulnerable after her best friend's suicide. At the end of the day, yes, she's legally an adult, but she's still a teenager being shoved into scenarios no teenager should. And so he takes care of her well-being more than what I've seen in other series, which I appreciate a lot, and it speaks to his character and is one of the reasons why he's my favourite. It would be hard-pressed to recommend Aftergod without highlighting Sumi Eno's beautifully crafted art style. The art is significant in depicting the angelic notion of gods, but also their terrifying true nature. Its imagery leans towards eldritch horror. Double-page spreads depict the gods' immense presence and scale, forcing your attention and showcasing humanity's inferiority to illogical beings we are powerless to defeat. The gods are terrifying purely by their mere existence. There's dread in awaiting their next moves, a simple flick of the wrist enough to transform a person to mere water in seconds. They're omnipotent in power, save for the accurate knowledge of humankind and the soul, though that mere fact entices some gods by nature too. And all of this is shown through Sumi Eno's ability to make readers feel uncomfortable, to see gods as the true supreme of the story. But another element that amplifies the horror imagery is the intricately detailed patternings showing the supernatural power of the gods. I say pattern because I don't know what other word to call it. Similar to the Summer Hikaru dyed with its black irregular pattern that's unnerving by its own merit, Sumi Eno frequently draws these almost unintelligible objects blended together in a way that's uncomfortable to look at. It's hard to describe, but they remind me of that popular photo that was shared online to simulate the experience of having a stroke. That idea of recognising shapes but being unable to name them in that frustrating and somewhat disturbing nature. Which is intentional. This pattern combines plants, bones and lifelike matter. It's a microbiota in a weird, deformed pattern, basically. or archaebacteria, which are microorganisms that are an ancient form of life developed separately from bacteria and blue-green algae. Can't lie, absolutely had to Google that. Sciencey words aside, they're terrifying objects put in a blender to showcase a visual essence of power. It's part of what makes the visuals of Aftergod distinctive. They're so detailed that I'm desperate to know what Eno Sumi's technique is in drawing them, whether they're all drawn on the spot, if you will, or if they've made a pen stroke out of it as a quicker approach, or if they have an assistant dedicated to drawing them, because they look like they take ages to decorate. Another quick thing I'll mention is due to Aftergod being digitally released on Manga 1 and Urasunde, Sumi Eno takes advantage of this several times by applying selective colour, notably red on Alula. Using the colour splash technique, Alula stands out on every page, differentiating the imbalance of Alula's existence possessing Waka. Digital publishing allows mangaka to be more creative in colour work, something that would be harder to achieve through digital drawing. Aftergod is definitely an underrated series that hasn't had its true moment to shine, which is odd, given its genre and appeal would be favourable to many. So if you're in the mood for a creepy yet wacky story that depicts gods as fearsome beings, has Chainsaw Man type of humour and Yuri Yaoi crumbs, Aftergod is definitely the manga for you. Hey guys, thanks for watching to the end of the video as always. So this video was meant to have come out before the Savika one, but essentially my PC kind of just crashed. And it not only crashed, but my After Effects project just completely corrupt. So in doing this video, I've had to completely redo probably like 6 minutes worth of editing and stuff again. I want to say a massive thank you to people who are supporting me on Patreon, and also a thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video because it really helps out the channel, and I'm looking to hire out my own office hopefully in the next few months. So any and all money that I get towards the channel is going to go towards my office. The moment I have an office, the more my workload will be easier to deal with, and I can record at any time and stuff like that. I really appreciate any and all help that people give, and I appreciate people for even clicking on the video. With all that said, I'll catch you guys in the next one.